The night it all began, I was already 2 drinks deep and 30 miles outside of Boston, waiting for the rain to wash the blood off my hands. The sky cracked open with thunder, the kind that vibrates in your ribs and makes you believe in old gods. And maybe I did for a second. Maybe I thought someone up there was giving me a sign. But I don't believe in omens anymore. Not after what happened to my brother. Not after what they did to him. And to me, my name is Noah Maddox. For 16 years, I was a field agent with the FBI. 5 of those years, I spent buried deep undercover inside a criminal syndicate known to the world as a luxury car club, Vanguard Velocity. But to me, it was something else entirely. It was the place my brother vanished into. And the place my wife learned how to lie. She wasn't always like that. Or maybe she was. Maybe I just couldn't see it. The thing about living a double life is that the mask starts to feel like skin. You wear it so long, you forget it was ever fake. Tonight, the mask cracked. The Lamborghini pulled into the underground garage like it owned the night, murder black, low to the ground, hissing steam in the cold air. I watched it through the rearview mirror of my rented Ferrari, the one I was supposed to be driving for the weekly tuning session. In Vanguard, tuning meant racing. Racing meant deals. And deals always meant blood. The passenger door opened first. That's when I saw her. Eva. My wife. My traitor. She stepped out laughing, her red cocktail dress soaking in the fluorescent lights like fresh paint. Her hand lingered on the driver's arm. Vincent Riker, the man who ran Vanguard. A man I'd spent 3 years pretending to admire while collecting evidence that would, someday, bring him down. I knew they were close. I didn't know they were this close. My knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. For a second, I forgot where I was, who I was. I wanted to storm out of the car, demand answers, scream. But I didn't, because if I did, the operation was dead. My cover was blown. And my brother? He'd stay a ghost forever. So I stayed still, watched, recorded it all in silence. The garage smelled like oil and high-stakes tension. Vince's laugh echoed, low and confident, bouncing off concrete walls lined with machines worth more than most people's homes. His arm slid around Eva's waist like it belonged there. She didn't flinch. She leaned in. Noah? Vince called out as if nothing was wrong, as if he hadn't just gutted me in front of my own eyes. You're early. I got out slowly, forcing a smile onto my face. I'd perfected it by now. Just enough charm, just enough arrogance to pass as one of them. One of the elite. One of the wolves. Wanted to get a feel for the weather, I said casually, nodding toward the wet pavement. Would hate to lose control on a corner again. Vince chuckled. That's what I like about you, Maddox. You're careful. You survive. Eva crossed the space between us like a ghost, her heels silent against the garage floor. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was new, expensive, deliberate, weaponized. I could still feel Vince's cologne on her skin. I didn't expect you so early, she said. I looked into her eyes and tried to see if the woman I married was still in there. All I saw was glass. Cold. Unbreaking. Neither did I said. 10 minutes later, we were upstairs. Vanguard's headquarters. A penthouse that looked like a cross between a Formula One control room and a 5-star lounge. Screens tracked races around the world, engine telemetry, GPS paths, encrypted comms. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you'd think this was a luxury racing business. If you did, you'd know it was something worse. They weren't just stealing cars. They were moving data physically in the cars themselves across state lines. Secrets, blackmail, financial leverage. Their empire wasn't built on gasoline. It was built on information. And tonight, I wasn't just here to race. I was here to confirm whether my brother had ever made it out alive. Corey Maddox disappeared 5 years ago. No body, no farewell, just gone. The Bureau closed the investigation after 3 months. Said it led nowhere. I never accepted that. I pulled every string I had left, called in every favor, until they handed me a different kind of case. A deep cover infiltration of Vanguard, the organization my wife's accounting firm just happened to work with. The same one Corey had been looking into before he disappeared. A judge walked in next, Judge Hadley Cray. Publicly, he was a respected federal voice on intellectual property litigation. Privately, he was the man who buried more evidence than a cartel lawyer. "Gentlemen," he nodded. "Ms. Maddox, lovely as always." I watched her smile back, watched her light up, and I realized something then, something awful. She wasn't pretending. This wasn't a mask for her. She belonged here, and maybe she always had. Later that night, back in our penthouse, our fake life built on top of so many lies, I watched her sleep, or at least pretend to. Her face was peaceful, too peaceful, and I remembered the photo I found 3 weeks ago, tucked away in a locked folder on her work laptop. A photo of her, years ago, with a man I hadn't seen in over a decade, Damien Locke, the Bureau's former financial cybercrime director, retired early. Now, he's Vanguard's fixer, and he introduced Eva to the judge long before she ever met me. The pieces started to click. Slowly, painfully. My marriage wasn't a coincidence. It was a setup, a long, cold con, one I never saw coming. But I see it now, and I swear, on the grave they pretended was my brother's, I will burn this empire to the ground, even if it takes everything I have left. You think you know who you married, until you find an encrypted spreadsheet hidden inside her tax software labeled only with your dead brother's initials. 3 years undercover had taught me to expect betrayal, but nothing prepared me for betrayal with her handwriting on it. The night after the garage, after watching her step out of Vincent Riker's car like she belonged in his world, I broke my own rule. I went digging. Her office was on the 17th floor of the Strauss building, overlooking Beacon Hill. She was meticulous about security, but she wasn't more meticulous than me. I'd cloned her security badge 6 months into our marriage. I told myself it was procedure just in case. The lie tasted bitter now. I entered after midnight, gloves on, cameras looped, breathing shallow. The building was silent in that way that makes you feel like you're breaking into something sacred. I moved fast, straight to her desk, her terminal, her encrypted folders. 3 passwords, 2 fails. The third worked. Inside was a directory labeled simply, Ghost. I clicked it. What I found nearly stopped my heart. Bank transfers, shell corporations, wire trails that bounced through 9 countries before settling into clean investment portfolios tied to Vanguard front companies. But it was the timestamps that made my hands shake. Some of these transactions predated my relationship with Eva. Some predated Corey's disappearance. And at the very bottom, buried in a subfolder labeled Clearance, DL, was a photograph. My brother, Corey Maddox, alive, standing beside a man with a blurred face and a laptop in his arms, in what looked like an unfinished office space. Concrete, steel beams, wiring exposed. The metadata put the photo at 3 months ago. I stared at it for 5 straight minutes, afraid if I looked away, it would vanish. He wasn't dead. He was somewhere. They had him, and Eva knew. My burner buzzed at 2:17 a.m. One word. No sender. Harbor. 4 a.m. Come alone. I didn't sleep. Didn't bother changing out of the clothes I wore to break into my wife's office. By 3:50, I was on Pier 19, hands deep in my jacket, my Glock pressed cold and hard against my ribs. She stepped out of the shadows like she'd been waiting for this moment since the day I vanished from her life. Detective Delaney Ward, Corey's ex-former Boston PD, now a private investigator too good at making enemies. "You're late," she said. "You're crazy," I replied. "You could have gotten yourself killed texting me like that." "I needed to know it was still you," she said. "Still him, before I told you anything." She handed me a manila folder thicker than my case file. "I've been tracking them for 5 years," she said. "Every asset, every shell company, every politician they bought. Couldn't let go. Not after what happened to him." I opened the file. Inside, contracts, legal filings, blackmail logs, names I knew, names I trusted, judges, lawmakers, FBI personnel. And at the center of it all, a sealed court record from a now expunged trial. Corey was listed as a confidential informant. The case? Vanguard Technologies. The dates lined up perfectly, weeks before he vanished. "I think he found something," Delaney said. "Something bigger than car smuggling. Something that scared the hell out of them." I nodded. "He didn't disappear. He was disappeared." "I can help you," she said. "But if we do this, there's no walking it back. I already burned that bridge the night I married her." By the next morning, things had changed. Fast. My FBI handler, Special Agent Luca Mercer, called from a number I wasn't supposed to recognize. "You need to get off the grid," she said. "Internal Affairs is coming for you." "McCrae?" I asked. "Worse. McCrae and Locke. Damian Locke. Eva's old mentor. Corey's old enemy. My current nightmare. He was supposed to be retired. But Mercer had been tracking encrypted calls routed through a secured terminal in the federal building. Turns out Damian wasn't just active. He was feeding intel to someone inside the bureau. Someone who'd just put me on a watch list. "Luca," I said, "I think I found Corey. Or at least confirmation that he was alive 3 months ago." "That's not possible," she replied. "The file's sealed." "I don't care what the file says. He's alive. And they know I know." She went silent for a moment. Then, "Meet me in 3 hours. Don't bring your badge. Bring your weapon." By nightfall, I had 2 targets. Eva's encrypted drive and Judge Cray's private chamber, where I suspected he kept Vanguard's sealed documentation. Both were risky. Both could cost me everything. But I'd already lost the only thing that mattered. I walked out of the penthouse that night without saying goodbye. I didn't need to, because in that moment I knew. My wife wasn't mine. She never was. They say when a man has nothing left to lose, he becomes dangerous. But I wasn't dangerous because I had nothing left. I was dangerous because I'd finally decided what I was willing to lose. The safe house was buried behind a fake antique store on the south side of Quincy. The kind of place that didn't exist in any federal records. The kind of place built for ghosts. Luca was waiting. She stood in the dark, her hand resting on the grip of a Glock 26. Hair pulled tight, eyes sharper than glass. "You weren't followed?" she asked. "Only by my conscience," I said, handing her a flash drive. "From Eva's laptop. She's been laundering for Riker since 2014. Luca plugged it in. Her pupils narrowed. "This is everything. Transfers, IP logs, account holders." "And that's not the bomb," I said. "The bomb is buried in the metadata. Judge Cray, Damian Locke, and McCrae all signed sealed warrants that gave Vanguard immunity from investigation. But only if Corey disappeared permanently." Luca cursed under her breath. "I want to extract him," I said. "Tonight." "Where?" she asked. "The old shipyard. Slip 11. He's there. Alive. Locked behind biometric security and 4 armed guards." She didn't hesitate. "I'll call it in." We hit the compound at 3:17 a.m. Fog rolled in thick off the harbor. Our team was 8 deep, feds and Boston PD, all handpicked, all clean. We moved like smoke, silent, invisible, lethal, until the second we weren't. Motion sensors, a secondary grid buried under the pavement. They saw us coming, and that's when hell kicked the door in. It started with a flashbang. Then came gunfire, tight bursts, automatic from the shadows. I dropped flat behind a shipping crate, drew my sidearm, and shouted for Luca. Her voice came back rough and pissed. "They're jamming comms." I saw 2 of our guys drop before I reached the first guard tower. I climbed the scaffolding under fire, slid my knife across the sentry's throat, and took his rifle before the blood hit the steel. I saw Corey through the warehouse window, bound, awake, struggling, alive, and I moved. I stormed the side door. 1, 2, 3 guards down. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I was done thinking. Another figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette I recognized by posture alone. Eva, wearing black tactical gear, holding a sidearm. "You shouldn't be here," she said. I leveled my weapon at her. "He's my brother. You don't understand, Noah." If you take him, Riker will bring the whole city down. Then let him try. She hesitated. And for a second I saw it. The flicker of the woman I used to believe in. Then she raised her gun. But I was faster. I shot her. In the shoulder. Non-lethal. I wasn't ready to kill her yet. But I would be. Corey was locked in a biometric cage behind a reinforced steel door. I dragged a bleeding guard to the scanner, forced his hand onto the pad. Click. The door slid open. Corey looked up, half believing, half terrified. "Noah?" he said, voice hoarse, raw. "I told you I'd find you," I said, cutting the zip ties. "We're not dead yet." "Behind you," he shouted. I turned just in time to see a shotgun barrel. But Luca got there first. One shot. Center mass. The man dropped like a stone. "Get moving," she growled. Outside, everything had gone to hell. Explosions lit the fog. Gas lines sabotaged. Trucks igniting like torches. One of our extraction vans was on its side, smoking. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they sounded like they were miles away. "Secondary escape route," I shouted, pointing toward the seawall. Corey limped beside me, Luca covering the rear, her clip nearly empty. And then Vincent Riker stepped out from behind a stack of crates. Black trench coat, assault rifle slung low, fire reflecting in his sunglasses. "You came for him," he said, smiling. "Predictable. You're done," I said. "No," he replied. "You are." He lifted the rifle. I stepped forward, but someone else fired first. A single suppressed shot hit Riker in the side of the head. He crumpled without a sound. I turned, stunned. "Delaney, Corey's ex, the one who never stopped digging." "Nice of you to show up," I muttered. "Fashionably late," she replied, holstering her weapon. "Now get your ass on that boat." We escaped through the fog. Corey bleeding, Luca limping. My ears ringing like sirens were screaming inside my skull. The compound burned behind us. The secrets we stole would bring down everything. Cray, Locke, McCrae, Riker's offshore accounts, Vanguard's blackmail empire. But we weren't safe. Not yet. The real storm hadn't hit. Not until we faced what came next. The fallout. The reckoning. And Eva. Because traitors don't die easy. They wait in the dark. And I had just turned on the light. Rain had been falling for 3 days straight. It drummed against the courthouse windows like war drums. Like it wanted to wash away everything that had happened here. I stood in the back of the courtroom, without a badge, without a tie. Just a man watching the empire that ruined his life burn to ash. At the front, 3 of them. Judge Hadley Cray, stripped of his robes, hands shaking on the table, decades of power draining from his skin. Damian Locke, ex-FBI, architect of the conspiracy, face calm, soulless. A man who played chess with people's lives and believed he'd never lose. And then her, Eva, my wife, my betrayer, wearing a dark suit, hair pinned back, eyes still, too still. But not cold this time, not smug. This time, she looked like someone who'd finally run out of masks. And maybe she had. The judge presiding over the case, Sarah Chun, a real judge, read the sentences with deliberate weight, like each word mattered more than the next. Cray, 22 years. Locke, 30. No parole. Riker and the Vanguard Council, life behind bars. Then came Eva. Judge Chin paused, looked directly at her. "You didn't just break the law. You corrupted trust. You weaponized love. You built your empire inside another person's heart and detonated it from the inside. 18 years. No early release." Eva didn't flinch. But when Locke was dragged away in chains, she looked after him. And I understood then he had been the real connection. Not me. Not ever. After the hearing, Clay Lyon, the Bureau's deputy director, found me outside. The rain hadn't stopped. He offered a handshake. "You pulled off the impossible," he said, "and lost everything in the process." I shook his hand. Not everything, because my brother Corey was alive. And standing just a few feet away, leaning on a cane, watching the sky like it might give him back 5 stolen years. I joined him. "When did you know?" he asked. When did you realize it was all fake? I took a breath. The night I saw her smile at him. The way she used to smile at me. Only this time it wasn't fake. This time it was real. He nodded slowly. You want to go home? I asked. Let's start with coffee. 6 months later, the storm was finally over. We rebuilt our father's Mustang. Took our time. Called it garage therapy. Sometimes it felt like rebuilding that car was the only thing holding either of us together. I now teach at Quantico, training new agents not just in tactics, but in how to see the subtle betrayals. The lies people tell with their smiles. How evil sometimes enters through open doors and shared beds. Eva Maddox, now Eva Locke again, is case study number 1. Sometimes letters still arrive. No return address. Written in black ink. Neat handwriting. You would have loved me, even if I'd told you the truth. That's what made it worse. That's why I could never let it happen. I never respond, because there's someone else now. A woman who knows every lie I've ever told, and still chooses to wake up next to me. That's enough. Final image. A garage. The Mustang rumbles to life under a golden morning sky. A baby seat sits in the back. A photo taped to the dash. 2 brothers, grease-stained, smiling wide. Ahead, open road. Behind them, fire,